What's up guys, Kyle here again, and today we're gonna check out the Fortin Cali. Let's do it. All right, hope you guys are doing great out there. Today, we're taking a look at the Fortin Cali. This is a super boutique, somewhat rare, highly sought after piece of gear. This is only the second time I've played this amp, and I'm actually doing this demo because I sold it to somebody and I have to actually ship it out later today. Honestly, I was really excited to get this amp. I was really excited to see if it lived up to all the hype. Obviously, the tone is gonna be subjective. But when I first hooked it up, I was a little disappointed, to be completely honest. Don't get me wrong, it's a great sounding amp. I just don't think that the Fortin voicing sits with my ear very well, so I can get it to sound great. However, it's just not quite my taste of hot-rodded Marshall type tones. So I'm not criticizing the amp by any means. I think it's great. There's almost like an option paralysis type thing going on where you have all these switches that affect your tone on the bottom here, as well as your standard EQ dials. You've actually got two different OD modes and a clean mode. So you're getting a lot in this amp. But from everything I had heard, the Fortin Cali was just like the end-all be-all modded modern Marshall tone. For me, it is not that, but I'm not saying that it can't be that for everybody because it is a fantastic sounding amp. So I'm not gonna spend too much time talking about this because there's a lot of stuff to go over here. And I really wanna try to get through all the options with you guys and show you what this amp can do. So first up, I'm gonna do exactly what I always do. I'm gonna put everything back to noon. I had that thing boosted with my Deadweald Duality as always. We're gonna turn that off. We are on OD2, we're gonna go to OD1 to start. Okay guys, so we are on OD1. I have everything at noon. All of these switches are technically in the middle or neutral position. The saturation knob is pushed in, the violence is turned off. Like I said, this thing is just options galore. There's a lot of ways to tweak the tone, which in my opinion can make it very confusing unless you really sit down and figure out this amp, which most people who are gonna buy this amp are gonna spend a lot of time dialing it in. For me, it was just something that I really wanted to try and had no intention of keeping just due to the price tag alone. I'm completely honest, I just can't have that much sunk into a single amp when my Squans and 5150s are really what do it for me. So right now, we are on OD1. I've got the master around 9 o'clock. I've got both of the gains around 9 o'clock. Let's hear how that sounds. It's essentially a clean tone, a very kind of thin, jangly clean tone. All right, so we are going to bump both of those gains up to 11 o'clock. There's two different gains, gain 1 and gain 2. So what both of those gain pots do is not only add saturation, usually from like clipping diodes, they also change the signal pretty significantly. Usually when you add gain on Jose style modded platforms, both gain 1 and gain 2, they alter the EQ, they make the amp fatter, they make it fuller, they make it flubbier, they can do a lot. So you usually have to find a good balance between gain 1 and gain 2. So we're up around 11 o'clock now. Let's see if we get some distortion out of this thing. All right, I'm actually gonna bring the level down a little bit. But yeah, as you can tell, we're getting a little bit of like a clean breakup type tone. Let's push it up to 1 o'clock and see if we actually get into some overdrive territory. There we go. That right there is a really nice sounding tone, honestly. Very, very bright, which if you guys have ever really played like a cranked plexi, those things will tear your head off with brightness. So I'm gonna turn the treble back. All right, so let's turn the gains up even further to 3 o'clock. See how much fuller the amp sounds now that the gains are up? It's like got a lot more low end. It's not super thin and jangly anymore. I keep having this issue and I actually have to contact the buyer. The first time I hooked it up, the amp did not do this, but for some reason the speaker cable in the back seems to be ejecting itself slightly from the jack. And I literally have to push it in as hard as I can, and it'll slowly come out as I'm playing. And I've had to do this 2 or 3 times since I turned the amp on today. And that's what happens. All right, so we seem to be okay for now. Let's keep going. All right, so that's a really good tone on its own. I'm pretty impressed by that. Let's pull the saturation switch. As you can tell, we've got more saturation now. But it also compresses and darkens the amp up quite a bit. Let's pull the treble back up and add some presence. The treble seems to add a lot of upper treble frequencies, which make the amp almost jangly and kind of unpleasant sounding. Okay, so that sounds pretty good. Let's add a little more mid and a little more bass. All right, so we got quite a bit of gain going on right now, but it sounds a little muffled to me. All these bright switches can be enacted at the same time and they make a huge difference. So let's turn on the farthest one. I really like that tone, just like that. That sounds good. It is introducing a good bit of noise though when I'm playing, if you can hear it. Let's turn that one off. Let's turn it to the other side. I don't like that one because it's more jangly, more of like a Vox type brightness. So that was switch 2 to the right and to the left. All right, so that one sounds pretty good. It's a lot more subtle for sure. And finally, the first bright switch. All right, and to the left. That bright switch might not even work on this channel. It doesn't seem to be doing anything, or if it is, I'm not perceiving the differences. So not hearing much from bright switch number 1, but 2 and 3 definitely make a huge difference. But honestly, right in the middle seems to be the best and the most balanced. If I didn't have a boost, I would probably kick that one to the right, but that's how it is for now. So this whole time we've had the violence off. Now the violence is kind of like a big gain and signal boost, it seems, and it makes a huge difference when you turn it on, so we just turned it on. Adds a lot of gain and saturation, also seems to add some low mids and lows to the signal, so it makes it like punchier in the low end. So that's pretty cool too. Let's kick on a boost and see how it sounds with the violence off. All right, let's kick the violence on. All right, so it's pretty noisy. Let's dial these gains back. Yeah, just, you gotta have the gains up in order to make this channel sound full, or the OD1 sound full. So I have the violence off with the boost on, and that seems to be a pretty good tone right there. Okay, let's try scooping the mids out a little bit and see how it takes to that. I'm gonna turn the treble up to compensate a little bit. Not bad, honestly. Most amps, when I scoop the mids out, it kind of takes the life out of them and makes them sound a little bit muffled. This one sounds pretty good. Let's turn the mids up quite a bit. So I got the mids up and treble down. Turning the presence up a little bit to compensate for that treble being turned down. Totally missed that note. But anyways, this is probably my favorite tone I've gotten from the amp so far. I'm going to pull the mids back a little bit. All right, I'm getting carried away because this sounds good. It's fun. There are a couple more switches that I haven't talked about yet. Here's the thump and the hair. Now in the middle, both seem to be the loudest, so adding thump seems to add some compression and low EQ to the signal. The hair actually in the center is the brightest, so when you move it side to side, it actually takes some of that top end off. So let's engage. Well, here's the amp with the thump in the middle. All right, here it is over to the side. All right, so it kind of seems to compress it a little bit. It actually almost seems like it's more saturated in that setting. Let's kick it over to the right. That seems to add a little bit of like a sub-low frequency and also seems to compress it as well. Sounds good in both settings. I think I like it in the middle the best just because it keeps the amp in more of a raw state. It seems to have less compression in that mode, which I tend to prefer. So the hair, here's the hair in the middle. Here it is to the left, to the right. All right, so it seems to actually add some. It just seems to shift the high frequencies a little bit lower in that position. I think that's what I'm hearing. So over to the right. Okay, so earlier when I was messing with the high or the hair switch, there seemed to be a more pronounced difference. I'm not really noticing a lot right now. It seems to be very subtle. All right, so yeah, it definitely has more high frequencies that seem to be in the upper high, whatever you want to call it, EQ region. It makes it brighter, a little bit harsher, but I think that I just overall like the tone with it in there, and you can adjust the presence and the treble to compensate a little bit for that. So let's go over to OD2 because I'm almost out of time here. All right, so OD2, we're gonna put everything back. Now, earlier when I was messing with them, there seemed to be some differences in between the two. So I don't know if that was just perceived because I had different switches like the violence on or something like that, but overall OD1 seemed like it was a little bit more open. But again, that could have just been because I had the violence on one and not the other. I truly wasn't paying attention, so I kind of screwed up there, but hope you guys can forgive me. All right, so everything's at noon, gains are at 9 o'clock again. We're back to a clean tone. Gains are at 11. Louder, clean tone. Okay, back up to 1 o'clock. Getting some breakup and getting my little speaker cable thing going on again. OD1 seems to have more highs and less lows, whereas OD2 seems to be a little bit fatter with the gains up like that. So let's pull that saturation switch again on OD2. All right, so it seems quite a bit fatter, like that. This whole channel just seems to be more low mid based and compressed. Add some treble and mids and see how that does. Honestly, it reminds me a lot of a rectifier, the way the low mids are very like congested and big sounding. So it's kind of cool that you get the option between the two, and you can adjust the two gains differently too to kind of set each OD the way that you would want. So they are definitely different. All right, so let's kick a bright switch on. I'm gonna pull that treble back again and pull the presence up. Just a lot fatter, a lot more low mids in the signal overall. We're gonna back that gain a little bit down and kick a boost on. Yeah, again, OD1 just seems to be a lot brighter and tighter, whereas OD2 is fatter and it rolls some of the highs off. Let's turn the violence on OD2. Very big and fat sounding for sure. It adds a lot of saturation. Let's turn the boost off and see how it sounds. So yeah, as you guys can hear, there's some significant differences between OD1 and OD2. Overall, really cool amp. I like OD1 a lot. I actually think that that's a great tone. And if I could get a Fortin amp that just had OD1 and pulled out all the bright switches and basically kind of dumbed it down a little bit for like half the cost, I could see it being an amp that I would keep and use, honestly. OD2 is very cool. Like I said, it's kind of got that rectifier type low mid and a little bit saggy, a bigger, fuller, low EQ, kind of blooms a little bit. So it's a good sounding amp. It's just not an amp that I want to keep considering the price tag at the moment. I think it sounds fantastic. Does it live up to the hype? Yeah, kinda. I mean, yeah, it's a great sounding amp. I would still take my Spawn over it without even questioning it. That's not offense to Fortin. He just, you know, when you buy an amp from a certain manufacturer, you're buying an amp tuned to their ear. So Spawn, the way that he EQs his amps, just fits with me a little bit better. And the Fortin stuff is great. It's just, there's a little bit more like modernness to it. I don't know what it is, the way that the EQ stack sits, or if it's a compression or what. This amp is very open and raw on OD1, so I don't think it's the compression, but either way, it sounds really good. Like I said, if I could get just OD1 in a single channel box with some of these options that I don't need removed, that's an amp that I would certainly consider owning. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button on the way out. Consider subscribing because I'm always running through awesome high gain amps, cabs, overdrives, all sorts of stuff, giving you guys the unprocessed audio. So if that's something you're into, consider subscribing to the channel. Again, hope you guys enjoyed this. Hope it was helpful. Kyle here again, and we'll see you next time.